What's up, Fragrant World? Welcome back to another Stay Fresh production. Today we are talking about a relatively new fragrance, but definitely one that has been talked about a lot since its release earlier this year. And you've seen dozens of reviews on it already, I'm sure, but I did want to share my take because I do feel, even though late to the game, I do feel very fortunate to have finally smelled this fragrance because I was interested and curious about it, and I feel even more fortunate to have actually received a bottle of it from the creator himself, at least the mind behind this brand. Again, you already know what this is. This is called Office for Men from the brand Fragrance One, headed by Jeremy Fragrance. And he did not give this to me to review. I'm just deciding to review it on my own accord because I have been, again, curious about this one. And after getting my nose on it and putting it in context with everything I've heard about it, I now have formulated my own thoughts and I wanted to share them with you. We're not going to go super deep into the actual fragrance itself because, again, it has been talked about a whole lot already. So we're going to break it down a little bit. I'll talk about the scent. We'll talk a little bit about the performance. But most importantly, we're going to talk about the controversy behind this fragrance. I have my own opinions on it, so we'll get to that in a second. First off, let's talk about the scent. Now, the bottle itself is, I find it nice. It's pleasant, easy to look at, looks nice on a dresser or tabletop, and it's simple. You know, it's nothing special as you can see, but it is nice. One thing I do really like is the actual atomizer. I'm going to spray a little on my hand. A nice thick mist that it puts out when you press it all the way down, and you can somewhat control how much diffuses. Now, it's in the air. I'm already enjoying this scent. Now, what does this smell like to me after spending some time with it? But first of all, if you missed my first impressions video that I did with Jeremy, you can catch it here. We were at Scent Explorer in New York City just a few days ago and had a wonderful time. Had a great time meeting Jeremy. We had some good conversations. And again, made a video sharing my first impressions, which were overall positive. They're good. I do enjoy the scent. Again, very likable. Had nothing bad to say about it at the time. After spending some time with it, I think it is still a really nice scent. What does it remind me of? Creed Aventus Cologne. I don't know if I've heard anyone mention that, but that clicked into my head one day. I was wearing it, I was getting the sillage, and I'm like, Aventus Cologne. It's almost like Aventus. It's woody, it's a little bit green even, and it's very fresh and aromatic and citrusy. It has a touch of almost fruity sweetness, which comes from the bergamot here. And just like Aventus Cologne, which is almost fruity sweet like its predecessor Aventus, but not quite there. It's kind of in that realm. Bergamot can have almost a hint of sweetness to it, but it is very fresh, very, very invigorating when you smell it. And that is what it's been since then. Since that clicked into my head, I put it on, I'm reminded of Aventus Cologne, but Aventus Cologne is a little bit more natural smelling to me. This seems to utilize some more aroma chemicals, some more synthetic ingredients. One of them namely being ambroxan, which is very apparent here, especially at first spray. Luckily, that does kind of tone down as it dries, but that ambroxan, if you're familiar with a lot of popular fresh designer fragrances on the market now, then you'll recognize that character of the scent, that ambroxan. It's kind of musky. It's hard to describe. It definitely doesn't smell natural, but it doesn't smell bad either. Now, as it wears on the skin, it stays fresh all the way through. It does have a bit of a roundness as it dries, especially in the heart. I think there are some floral notes, and it is a little bit warm and woody as it dries as well, but it again stays fresh, fairly linear scent, doesn't really change much. In terms of the performance, a lot of people were claiming beast mode with this. One of the things that this thing is claiming is its high concentration of oils. I think Jeremy said it's at least 30%. So the claim was that this fragrance would be very long lasting. It would be very diffusive, so it would project really well, be easily to detect. And I would agree with that. It is very diffusive. You spray it on, and for most of the day that you're wearing it, you will detect this around you. You will have a scent trail behind you. You will have nice projection off of you. People will smell it. And it definitely smells even more pleasant in the air than it does close up, which is, again, how we mostly experience fragrance anyway. This is kind of an unrealistic way of experiencing fragrance in the real world. I've talked about that before. I wouldn't say this is beast mode by any means. It does last me just about all day. At least a good 8 to 10 hours, I can smell it, and that is really good for a fresh scent. I'm not mad at that. It doesn't have the presence or the thickness or richness of, a fragrance with a more denser scent profile. You just can't simply get that experience from these types of ingredients, this type of composition. It's fresh, it's clean. It's not going to be super pungent, and actually I don't think you would want it to be, because then it kind of loses its cleanliness, it loses its class. So the performance I'm actually fine with. It is adequate, and it's more than adequate for a fresh scent, and I think it plays its role well. You wear this to work, in the office if that's where you work. It's going to last you all day, and it will get you compliments. It definitely will. Now let's talk about the controversy behind Office for Men. And where it lies the most is the price, as you might already know. The last time I checked, Office for Men was going for $180 a bottle. Now they have been running a bit of a special over the past couple weeks, and I don't know how much longer it'll run, where they are doing a buy one get one free, which is quite a good deal for this. 100 milliliters, you pay 180 bucks, and you get 2 bottles for that price. If you want 2 bottles of it, it's a great way to get it. But if we're just looking at the single bottle price, $180, what do I think of that? I think it is very high. I think it might even be too high. But I'm not going to say it's too high for the quality of the scent, because they are claiming this thing to have great quality. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I can tell it's well put together. Alberto Marias is the perfumer behind this, and he is no slouch. He knows what he's doing in terms of putting together a high quality scent that is likable and easy to wear. But I do think it is overpriced in regards to the wearing experience, the scent character of this fragrance. It is nothing new. It is nothing overly special. I don't think it was meant to be that, but again, for that price, you might expect that it would be. Overall, the fragrance is very simple. As I said, it's pretty linear. It's a simple scent. And to pay that kind of price for such a simple wearing experience, yeah, that's going to create some controversy. You're not paying for an enriching fragrance that's going to evolve and capture your interest throughout the whole day you're wearing it. You're paying this price for a high quality scent that's well put together with a lot of oils, so it has good performance, and also one that is created by a master perfumer. So for $180, you can find a lot of other niche fragrances in this bracket that have a much more interesting wearing experience, ones that are going to evolve, that are going to be more interesting, have more depth and complexity to them. And obviously you can find some designer scents, quite a few designer scents that a lot of people compare this to, that will get you the same wearing experience, the same compliments, the same performance for at least half the price of this. So again, you put them side by side, people are not going to be too thrilled with this. They're going to ask like, well, what is the value of this? Why is it so high? And ultimately that is up to the consumer to place value. The purpose of Office for Men, in my eyes, and Jeremy would probably agree with this, is that it is meant to be as mass appealing to as many people as possible. Whenever a company sets out to make a product that is meant to attract as many people as possible, they're now dealing with a very delicate balance of familiarity with surprise. What that means is you want to have the product to have a nice balance of something that is familiar, something that reminds people of something they've experienced before. So, because we're naturally drawn to things that we kind of recognize or that are familiar. But you don't want it to be too familiar, because then it just becomes redundant and easy to overlook. And that's where the surprise element comes in. You do want it to stand out in a little bit of a way. You want it to have a little bit of its own character, something unique to it, an element that only it has. And I think that Office for Men, it does, again, smell reminiscent, at least to me and to other people. I'm sure others have other associations. It smells reminiscent to, like I said, Aventus cologne for me, but it is not Aventus cologne. It is a little bit different. It kind of has a little bit of its own character. So that is the surprise element and the familiarity element all together. It's familiar, but it does have a little bit of something new, so to speak. And that will appeal to a ton of people. That's what they set out to do, and they're doing that. They are succeeding in that venture. If you make a fragrance too off the wall, too niche, then it can be very divisive. And that's just kind of the sacrifice that a lot of niche companies, they make. If they make a fragrance that is going to be very artistic, off the wall, out of the blue, unlike anything you've ever smelled before, then they are rolling the dice to say, like, okay, we know that we're cutting our audience down the middle. There are going to be people that absolutely cannot get down with this. And there's going to be people who absolutely love it. You just make it that much more polarizing. But in this case, that's not what we're doing with Office for Men. So ultimately, I don't care that this is overpriced. I admit that it is overpriced for the scent profile and for the wearing experience, but I don't really care. Now, I know I said I received this bottle for free, but I feel no obligation to say that I love it and recommend that you go out and buy it. But I am grateful that I have it. I'm grateful to Jeremy for giving me this bottle and for allowing me to experience it, because I do enjoy wearing it. I have worn it and I have had good experiences wearing it. I honestly had no plans to purchase this myself because I do find it expensive, but I was never mad that it was expensive to begin with when I first heard of the price. The reason is because this is very simple for me. This is just how I live my life. If there is something that someone is doing that does not necessarily affect you, but you don't agree with it, then ignore it. Let it go. Move on to something else that you can resonate with. That's something that you agree with. There's no reason to spend time and energy getting upset about something that someone else is doing that doesn't necessarily have to do with you unless you let it. There are those who have been compelled to pay full price for this fragrance. And what do we say to those people? You say nothing. If anything, you say good for them. They place value in the scent. They found it to be worth their money. They bought it. They enjoy it. And they're living their lives. And we got to let that be. What else can we do? Now, if this was something like Jeremy was raising our taxes, then yeah, we could all get upset because that affects all of us. But this is something that we all have the option to partake in or not. So if you don't want to deal with it, then what's the point of getting upset about it? I do think it's really easy to sit behind our computer screens or our phone screens and just spout off hate and negativity. Keyboard warriors, as they call them. It's so much easier to do that than it is to put yourself out there like Jeremy has, to put everything on the line, to invest all of his time and his money, to stand up to people in this industry as someone coming up from the bottom and saying, this is what I want to do. It has to be like this. And then putting out a product and marketing that product. It takes a lot of courage to do that. It is a lot harder to do that. So I'm not saying you have to like the scent. I'm not saying you have to agree with Jeremy or you have to respect him. But all I'm saying is that if you don't, then just move on. There's nothing that needs to be said about it. If you don't care about it, go to something you do care about. So those are just my 13 cents, way more than 2, I'll say, about Office for Men. I like the scent. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. If I'm gonna say, if you have to have one fresh fragrance to wear that you want to get compliments with and that lasts a good while, this may not be my go-to, but I'm not gonna say don't check it out. If you want to check it out, then by all means, check it out. I'll link to it down below if you want to check out the fragrance. You might even be able to go on eBay and find decants, or go on Facebook. People are probably decanting it if you wanted to get a sample of it. But that's Office for Men. Easy to wear, nails what it's trying to do. But if it's something you don't dig, then move on. So that's all I wanted to say. That was a lot. I did not prepare to say all that much about it, but I just kind of wanted to let it flow. So Jeremy, thank you so much for allowing me to experience the fragrance. I wish you all the best in the rest of your ventures for your upcoming releases. There's always going to be haters. Just keep doing your thing, man. And to the haters, again, you're wasting your time and your energy. We need more positivity and light, and the easiest way to do that is to focus on the things that you love. Just a little bit of wisdom. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.